This is the kid.
Too bad, not too bad at all. Not too bad for a wet summer, a wet summer in the UK.
All right. Are you in the UK? Are you based in the UK?
Yeah. It's midsummer, the height of summer.
Yeah.
I am, yeah.
What?
It's the height of
All
summer,
right.
and it's 14 degrees.
All right. So how did are you the one I was talking to? Hello?
I think we tried to catch up a bit yesterday. Normally it's Wellington I normally speak to.
Okay.
But it's just sent me the link to get a bit of a contact with you. Yeah.
All right. So what do you think of the initiative that Wellington is talking about?
I think networks have got a power unto themselves that is beyond anything else you can do. And I think what Wellington is trying to do, like in terms of bringing people quite close together and sharing ideas and allowing the birth of new thoughts to emerge, can only be a good thing. And the fact that it's a free space, that's to me is a winning combination.
Today, you know what we are talking about? We are talking about identity politics.
In terms
and citizenship, just the identity. Who am I? When I say I am a journalist, what is a journalist? As a question. When I say I'm a doctor,
yes. Coming back. Yeah, I think identity is one of those words that can easily be misused depending on the purpose of the user. As you see, people can take on various different personas or identities depending on the circumstances and how it helps or hinders their message or other people's message. So, for example, you can easily move quite seamlessly between being a journalist and an activist, depending on the person's perspective of the message you're delivering.
But when you talk to other people and say, I'm a journalist, what do you think this term means to you? Mm-hmm. What is a journalist to you?
In my view, a journalist is a professional person whose job is really is to gather information and deliver it to the general public. They, without fear or favor, they tell it like it is. So a journalist for me will be somebody. The obvious person I can think of is the man of the moment at the moment. Hopewell is clearly a journalist to start with, but depending on what he's saying, you can quite easily pigeonhole him as an activist, depending on how you like or dislike what they're broadcasting. We have this thing in the UK at the moment where you can go on the BBC. They have journalists, but also there's another channel called RT, which is a Russian-sponsored, a Russian TV channel, basically. And sometimes, depending on what they're saying, that can be conflated as propaganda.
All right.
And it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, we are joined by Innocent Netanyahu. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
How are you? And we are also joined by Wellington. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mawere. Good morning, Keith. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, Keith, to the C2C community.
Thank you very much, Wellington. Thank you for the invite. Much appreciated. And hello, everybody. Very lovely to meet you all.
And welcome to Natasha. She's the only. She's 20% of the group.
Morning,
So,
morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So let's, Innocent, you read the thread this morning. What is your
yes, I did.
What is your take?
I realized that you were sincerely asking questions, but I wasn't satisfied with the kind of responses that came from, forgetting the name, was what? The first guy that you were talking about. He wasn't sincere in his responses, but what I actually discovered was that he vindicated the allegations that the state have making on Hopewell Chin'ono, because towards the end he was now admitting that no, the Zimbabwe situation, you will not have to stick to the profession of journalism. You must also remember that I'm a citizen, I've got rights, I can use any means necessary to effect change. But you were actually emphasizing the point of sticking to the profession of journalism. Shall I be a journalist, or I should also enjoy other rights of being a citizen? That is what I thought you were actually trying to put across to him. But the guys ended up actually vindicating the state in that they said, as a citizen, I cannot be in the straight jacket of journalism. I can also enjoy my other rights. So I saw that as double dipping. So that's a challenge there.
So do you agree that sometimes we are not honest with each other? This is a veteran journalist with more than 20 years experience, but he can't tell you what is the promise of journalism or what is a journalist. Because it doesn't mean when I'm a doctor, I cease to be a human being. I can do other things, but when I say I'm a doctor and you come to me, you must expect something from a doctor.
Yeah, every profession has got its guidelines. I think there are ethics in journalism. It's just like I can refer you to the lawyers of the opposition MDC. They have political rights and they are members of the opposition. But you find that when a ZANU-PF official is alleged to have become corrupt or something, they will be represented by a lawyer from the MDC, and they will say it's a profession, so I can represent anyone from any party who is alleged to be corrupt. So it should be the same when it comes to journalism. You don't have now to break your ethics and say, because I've got political interests, so I should not respect the rules of the court or something. So it becomes a challenge. Imagine a brother from the MDC says, I'm going to nail my client because I think he's corrupt. No, you don't do that. You become very professional. And if the person from ZANU-PF gets a bail, it is your victory. We believe that you have done that professionally as a lawyer. So there is a challenge here in that most of the journalists, they violate the ethics of journalism. They are not honest. They use journalism as a front to advance their political motives. The moment you do that, the state will also take you head on your political motives. Then we begin to cry foul and say, so I think that's being unfair. But I think we should stick to the ethics of journalism.
You are in the other group. What is the name of the other group that I invited you it's now some months ago?
Is it this one that you were trying to impart that ethics of journalism? Isn't it towards media excellence? I think that's the group.
Yeah. And when you look back, since you joined the group, do you see people talking about this issue or using the case of Hopewell as a case study or just another group where the same rubbish is circulated?
Oh, when it was created, that group, I remember when you were posting the threads, and I was sort of provoked by the kind of quality dialogue that was ongoing there. But the moment everyone got in, it was hijacked. It was turned into a battlefield. The general polarization, ZANU-PF against them, DC against the ZANU-PF, and all this toxic politics. So there is nothing that now represents the reason why that group was created. If we are to right now actually begin to sort of reset the settings of that group, you will find that people will deliberately ignore those things. No one wants to do things that are ethical. People just want to rally behind the viewpoint that they think they have to defend.
All right. So if we take it, you as a case study, how many journalists do you think are in that group?
Oh, there are many. Actually, some of their numbers I've saved them. So there are many. There are many. I would say maybe around 65 or so.
Yeah. So right
and
now,
some credible journalists.
Yeah, the group is 227. It is 227 people.
Yeah. So if I'm to count the freelance journalists.
Yeah. So if
but there are many. There are many, because some that I know personally.
There are many, but they are missing in action. They are not proud of their profession. They don't even step forward and say, look,
yeah, maybe it's to do.
This is wrong. If I'm a journalist, let me stay on the lane of journalism. Let me showcase what I do. They will be showcasing their stories, their videos.
Yeah, that is what we expect, but maybe I don't know. Maybe it's to do with organizational, what do you call them? Editorial policies, organizational rules. Maybe they're not allowed to talk certain issues.
No, don't explain that on behalf of others. So it was just that don't explain. Okay. If you don't know, then just observe. So Wellington, do you discover that those who claim to be journalists are the very ones who are taking side, cheerleading what is not ethical for journalism?
Yeah. For starters, what I observe is that journalists have gone into some kind of a shell. We don't see them being vocal because maybe they are being gagged by editorial policies or etc. etc. But what is actually happening is that social media is gone to the forefront without journalism. So the risk now with social media is that as citizen journalists go online and speak their minds, etc., etc., ethics of the profession have gone to the door.
Who do you look up to personally as a journalist, exemplary journalist?
Hopewell Chin'ono is the first name that comes to mind in Zimbabwe, and in South Africa, Africa comes to mind.
All right, that's him. And Keith, who do you look up to?
Yeah.
Keith, who do you look up to?
You know, we seem to be talking about. Personally, for me, it's Hopewell. The reason why I'm thinking when people talk about ethics, it's such a broad tent when you talk about ethics of journalism.
You don't have to explain. That's what you look up to. And Godfrey in Mozambique, you look up to. Godfrey, can you hear? Godfrey is on mute.
Might need to type.
Hello? No, he has muted himself out of talking. And Natasha, do you have anyone you look up to? You want to be a journalist, and who do you look up to train you to be the best in the craft?
Well, I don't have a specific, but I don't want to be kind of a cliche-ish, but I look up to you, Mutumwa, because, you have, as I've said a million times on the show before, is that you've really inspired me over the years of knowing you. So I look up to you, even though you're not a journalist, but your knowledge is always valuable to me. So Mutumwa is my mentor, looking up to when it comes to journalism.
If you're talking about storytelling, yesterday you had Rajen. And what was the feeling of Rajen after the show?
It was great. I think we've reached a lot of people, and I feel so inspired today actually after the show. Because the response I got back and the response he got back from he shared the link and he shared the article I wrote, and the response we got back, it was so empowering, because now I just can't wait to keep on writing. I'm not a journalist myself, but after the response I got from them.
You're a good writer. Don't underestimate yourself. So a good writer is like a dog that barks without expecting to be congratulated for barking. How many people write with expectation of somebody saying you wrote very well? Imagine you just took upon yourself to say, if there's no one I look up to, then let me be the person others look up to without me asking them. If somebody is not objective, you become objective. It's like Innocent. In the group that we set up, he distinguishes himself by doing. He is contesting ideas every day. But he's not shying away from taking the next step to be the idea that he has in his mind. So there are people who are there, who are the media, they inbox you. They say, Mawere, what do you think about this? I said, but we set up a group to celebrate the best. Why are you not picking the ideas there to see what is the problem with Zimbabwe? Because Zimbabwe is the six of us right now. You are forced, Natasha, to talk about Zimbabwe. But imagine I took the same story you did yesterday and put yourself in Rajen's mind that I came to a show with no expectation. I came out of a show with a new sense of responsibility that I have to play my part with others. I have to reach others through others. I need to be part of this community where Keith is in the UK, Wellington is in Zimbabwe, Godfrey is in Mozambique, you are in Durban, and we are here. And what brings us together is this idea that we can raise the standards so that those who are not good journalists feel discouraged from writing a story and blaming the editor for the bad stories that I'm being told not to balance the story. Who would be a journalist who would tell you that don't talk to the other side, that a coin has two sides, that there is a side that you can call government. There is a side that you can call the rest of us who are not in government, not opposition. It's our government. Those in government and outside government, they are all part of the same family. But if I write a story that would divide somebody in government from somebody outside it, what am I creating?
Oh, you're creating havoc. You know, it's once again writing a story from one side. Like yesterday I said in the show, is that, you know, a story has two sides, but a story has a million opinions. And yeah, so if you had to write one side, you're going to cause havoc, and that's what makes a good journalist is someone who looks at the story from both sides and then gives his opinion on both sides of the story.
So I take fuel, and I take the match, and I light it myself. Then I blame the fire.
No, that's not the fire's fault. It's your fault. Because you took the match, you put the fuel, you lit the fire.
But sometimes, don't you feel some of our journalists are actually not firefighters? They are not there to bridge people with information. That whereas this one said this, that Hopewell is a terrorist. The other says Hopewell is a professional who is frustrated by the issues that take place around him.
Mm.
And when does a journalist become an activist? When does he become a professional? Because the people who are saying you're unprofessional, they also are unprofessional as government actors.
You know, they're unprofessional because, you know, those are the people who hide behind walls and they are too afraid to give their opinion. This is why I believe is if you don't stand up and try and make a change, you do not have the right to complain about people who are making the change out there. You don't have the right to lift your opinion if you're not moving forward for something. And you know, once again, it's we are bounded by, you know, rules in the world. You know, journalists are allowed to say A, B, and C, which is governed by the government. The government says to journalists what you're allowed to say. Look at other countries. Journalists just disappear. They literally, if they're like China, the ones when COVID just came out, you know, the doctor who said that COVID's been there for a long time, all of a sudden disappeared because the government didn't want that news to come out. You know, it's like as if the world's controlled.
But do you think, Mr. Laxon, that government is a person that can stop you? Who is government in the quest of identity?
Good morning, Mr. Mawere. Good morning, everyone. Government is us, the people.
But Natasha is saying government made someone evaporate in China. He had upset so many human beings in government who were intolerant that how can you not see the world the way I see it? If I say there's no COVID, there's no COVID. Just understand that. If I say there's no corruption, just understand there's no corruption. Why do you have to write about a non-event? If I say those people are corrupt, point your fingers at them. Write about those people, not about me. So
then, hello. Then it becomes those people who don't buy other people's ideas. So when we have people in the community who cannot buy something from someone, those becomes a problem.
All right. And Innocent, are you seeing the bigger picture that when it's dark at midnight and you have no one to look up to, are we not all black people at midnight?
That's a difficult one. But we might be all black people, but to some that darkness might not be a challenge to them. You know, darkness doesn't overcome the light. So
Innocent, how do you write a story at midnight when it's dark and call someone white, someone a charlatan, someone a spy, an agent of foreigners when it's dark? There are no shining lights.
It depends, because labeling people is all to do with what kind of perceptions you are having. Personally, I believe that race is an invention, but we will be talking about the systems. I don't believe you in this thing called racism. There are good white people, there are bad black people. So it's all about the characters that we should talk about. So when it's dark, sometimes that darkness doesn't affect anything, because some creatures, to them, darkness is the normal environment that they are living in. There are nocturnal animals. I think you are aware of that. So some people might not even shine when there is light. They shine when there is dark.
A journalist can see things in the dark. Keith, have you ever seen that? A guy then says there are 10% white people, but he can't see as well.
No, this is it. Like you say, you're using darkness as a metaphor for when there's a desert of information, and the few people who can get information are professionals, well-trained individuals who can, to some extent, decipher fact from fiction by putting one and two things together. But it's alchemy, isn't it? So some people can take the very same facts and create a completely different picture with a hope
that somebody can use the darkness to create divisions.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, 100%. And those are the dark arts that we hear people talk about. Is it deliberate that in Zimbabwe there's a lack of plurality in terms of news outlets?
Even some people, imagine I would write a story about Trump, and I'm a Democrat.
You're gonna color it a certain way.
It's very difficult to start the story.
Yes.
But I suppose
Wellington, you've been in this seat to see. Okay, go ahead.
So one thing I was going to add is that when we have this habit that I keep seeing of something that's a phenomena called false equivalence. For example, anything a journalist can write whatever they want about Trump, be it true or false, in America, and there are mechanisms in place that deal with that. Without necessarily anyone ending up in prison. There are penalties. In the UK, they've got a framework in place where if you print falsehoods, you are either forced to retract them in the same way that you gave them, and then there's a remedy through the courts. Whereas in countries such as our very own, print falsehoods against the government, they only have one mechanism for dealing with you. Whatever they perceive as falsehoods, you're going to end up in jail. And that's not normal. Journalisms don't tend to end up in prison in most countries. They tend to either be disgraced by someone else, another journalist.
Godfrey, it's midnight. We can't see you. We'll assume that you are dead, but he's still around. Okay. So Wellington, you are now part of this C2C. How did you convince Keith? What did you tell Keith to be interested? Wellington, how did you manage to convince Keith to end up here? Wellington, we can't hear.
Confess, Wellington, it's good for the soul.
Yeah.
So what happened is that I did not hear anything that you said. There was a bad connection.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't even hear anything. But maybe I don't know. Would you like to just quickly paraphrase?
I was saying, how did you get Keith to come out of the darkness and be here to be enlightened? I hope since he has not run away, he is confirming what you told him. What did you tell him? I don't think he's hearing. There seems to be a connection there. So now we turn to Keith. How did he tell you? And what did he tell you for you to end up here?
I suppose a bit of background. Myself and Wellington actually went to school together from Form 1 to Form 4. At which point we're a pair of inseparable, two peas in a pot. So our line of thinking was kind of percolated at Thornhill High School and beyond. He reached out to me. We have a lot of connections that we do over the last sort of 20 years, in fact, our entire adult life. So he reached out to me basically talking about a platform where you got the opportunity to put things across in an environment where you can hear both sides, hopefully, without too much of the necessary gnashing of teeth that can happen on other platforms. He says this is an opportunity for me. I've got a lot of ideas that I want to punch across, a lot of things that I am actually doing. And he convinced me that on this platform, some of my ideas might find a choir for me to preach to. But also equally, I can also be part of the choir to hear ideas from people that might even enhance my worldview and help me to make a success of bits and pieces that I've said. I mean, you mentioned your name quite a lot as part of that. And, I think so far from just the bit I've been listening to the last 30 minutes and looking at the threads that are going through, there is a bit of plurality to what's happening here. And Mr. Motumo, you seem to be obviously allowing both sides to talk. But what's very clear is that I think we're all after one thing, which is the good to come out of all this. Have I got it about right, Willie?
Okay, that's I think he is on mute. So thank you for taking time, giving up time to be here. The idea is that when we come together, those who have taken masks called professions must always be out there celebrating the profession they have taken and showing by their works how good they are. Unfortunately, there are people who are in the media who leave it to Natasha to think about what good story it is instead of helping her to integrate what we are talking about. It's a big story, what you have said, Keith, that we grew up together, we're buddies. And I ran away from Zimbabwe and left Wellington to go to South Africa, but he came back to Zimbabwe. But you are inseparable because your ideas can find expression on the same platform. So if we were to celebrate the member of the member of the day, it would be Wellington, who talks about what he's doing with passion. Because there are some who appear here who say nothing, hear nothing, do nothing. Then they still come back and say, what is my next show? They would want to argue with you that what you are saying doesn't work, when Wellington and Keith are one example of what we are talking about. And it's as old as Jesus Christ, who said, if two or more gather in my name, they don't need me. You don't need Mawere. Because you can have the conversations that keep going to say, what time is it? If it's midnight, let me not be the reason for making it dark. Let me be that shining star so that what I do can influence others to stop tribalism. Because journalism is tribalism. Being a lawyer is tribalism. Being a doctor is tribalism. Because what is a doctor without sick people? What is a lawyer without people who need a lawyer, who have no problems? What is a journalist without readers? Huh? Because I'm not employed by the client. If the client tells me, Mawere, your show is useless, you know who will be embarrassed today? It will be Wellington. It will be Natasha to say, I work with these animals. I didn't expect that they were going to embarrass me. They're not supporting me just by showing up while she's on the show, just helping here, like what Senior Muzungu does. He's there every day. That passion, you can't pay for it.
No, you can't. No, can't buy it.
The conversation is there, trying to register his voice on things that are so important to him. And that's what we call a journalist. Not those who say, I got certificates on my wall. I'm waiting for people to make me back, to do that which I love to do. So it means your presence here confirms something, that you have an interest, and we need to be able to build a community. So when we write a story, it is a story written by you. Out of this conversation, it will be your own story. And then we find a highway where each one of us has a lane. And we are going different directions, but we share a common highway that we can use to get where we want to get to. I could be a journalist just by being diligent, tapping on other people's networks to share my insight, than contain it in a WhatsApp group where that is bottled in. And you have written someone called me this morning, says, I've instructed my employees to listen and watch your shows. You are just telling me to say, while you are doing whatever you are doing, you may not know that you inspire even my employees to start dealing with issues in a structured way. So they tell me, whenever you are on, that you are on. But they have an interest. So, Innocent, what is it that we can do to make that group live up to its promise? Because clearly you can see that the more we share, the less we actually know what's going on.
I think we need to continue encouraging them, and we introduce, like what you have done. This is a good show, but you know, some might not be aware of these opportunities. So I think we need to, besides writing in the WhatsApp groups, we need to share these kind of platforms to the journalists. Then they see that these opportunities are there. Then they can begin to speak to a wider audience.
So now I give you the opportunity to talk to the world about your own experience. Innocent.
Okay.
From the day that I provoked you. You got in touch with me first, is that correct?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, but that was after you shared the threads.
And so after I shared the thread, and you were provoked to say, I want to be in that group.
Yes.
Then I added you. And so far,
yeah,
have you made friends? Have you made friends in that group?
Yeah, I've made lots of friends. I've got several acquaintances there. Yeah, there's been connections.
Okay, has it been beneficial to you? or disruptive to you?
Just that I'm a patient guy. I'm kind of a person that accommodates diversity. I've got a lot of sense of humor. I'm not really offended by people's having different thinking, but I don't think that overall the group has achieved its objective. Like I said earlier, that it has just become like one of the common WhatsApp groups where people are just in a battlefield and it's polarized. But here and there, in a bin you can pick the toy that you want. You don't need to check the entire bin. You might pick the toy that you want. But I think there are great people there that share some good insights, and some of those divergent views we just tolerate.
But are you a journalist?
I would say yes. There's this saying in the Bible that there are some who are eunuchs by birth, and some who are made eunuchs by birth.
What is your background?
I would say, my kind of journalism, how would I define? I'm a political activist. I'm an activist as well. I'm a national spokesperson for some civic organization that is vocal in Zimbabwe. And so my journalism is on that. In the political field, is in the civic field as well.
You as a person, when you came to the group, you have also distinguished yourself by generously giving your opinion.
Yeah, I like to do that. I have that passion.
But what motivates you to take the step forward and just say it?
Come again?
What inspires you without anyone asking you?
It's just that
on issues.
Well, I think this your philosophy that you don't believe in leadership, but you believe in equation. So the moment I see that I have to influence others, I can't wait for people to be self-influenced. So it's just natural motivation to say, if I am to be in a better country, I think I should just give the little that I have. And how do you know? Maybe out of 10, someone might pick 2 or 3 valuable issues. And I think that will edify someone. That's what motivates me. Just trying to influence other people.
If we were to start a school of journalism, because we have some members of this community who have courses in journalism, and they said, if we were to offer a course in journalism, who would you want to be in the faculty?
I wouldn't want these old dogs because we can't teach them new tricks. I would want the people that have the attitude to learn. I think we'll achieve better with that kind of people. We can identify some people. I think that is also part of my strengths.
Would you want to be one of the persons to say for the continent, let's change the way we think about the role of the media by doing something, by training new people to come to the profession? Those who are in the profession to unlearn, relearn, and perhaps learn how to report on event without being part of the event.
Yeah, that will be a good thing. I think that will be a good thing. Because really our journalism is not where it's supposed to be.
It's not going to change because you complain about it. So we can go deeper, like Keith said. Keith may be in the UK, but he can't determine the content of what is shared. But surely we can sit back and say, okay, Natasha, you wrote something, and you find some people just say to you, Natasha, interesting. Have you ever heard that word?
Yes, I have, yes.
And they say nothing. They just put a full stop. Then you say, what is interesting? They say, you figure out. They never comment. They never challenge you. Because when people challenge you, then you become better. Would you want a friend who says you are A+, but meanwhile they say you are D or E?
No, because in our lives, if that's your friends and your family, I think is the wrong audience, because they will always say it's good, but actually it's never good, or they don't show you any improvement. Your family and friends it's definitely the wrong audience. But obviously I wouldn't believe if my friend says to me it's an A+ article, because I'll be like, surely I believe there's some improvement.
To look at it, would you want people who are close to you who tell you what you want to hear?
No, because that's never gonna make me a better person. It's gonna let me stay in the exact same spot I am, and I'm gonna think I'm the greatest. But actually, when people read my articles, I'll be like, "What is this woman going on about?
But how many presidents employ people to tell them what they already know?
Oh, I think everyone does it because it makes them feel better. Just straight
helps the super ego.
Yeah. Yeah, would you want to be a president?
Is that to me?
Yeah.
I don't think so. But let me throw a challenge to my brother on the other side, who was saying he's an activist and a journalist. Is it possible?
Yeah, no, you are talking.
Okay. My brother said something, and he is saying he's a patient man, and he takes ideas from the other side of the coin. But just now I picked something that I feel he has a sentimental attachment to a system in the country. He is saying you cannot teach old dogs new tricks, meaning he has a class of people that he can share what he needs to share, which to me may not go down very well, because a community has everyone.
And that's innocent. What do you have to say? That in expression, you actually are a tribalist. But perhaps when you do right, you may be persuaded, because we are saying all dogs. How do you come to the conclusion that a dog that is old does not bite?
I didn't say it doesn't bite. It continues to bite, but it's a partisan bite. I used that metaphorically.
How do you come to that conclusion? The dog coming before you as a judge, and it gives. I mean, I've learned to be mellow. I've learned to be quiet. It doesn't mean I'm not hungry, but I'm a different dog. But not all dogs can be treated the same. Not all white people can be
I was
white.
I was simply trying to express metaphorically that there are some people who have now a habit they can't change no matter how you try, because of the
were you given 24 hours in a day to change other people to live your own life?
No, people should be changed, because some habits will be.
Where do you get the time to know which is a good dog, which is a bad dog, which is an old dog? Instead of you just being your dog. That's what Laxon is saying, that I've learned from this community, that let's treat each other equally. Let me not be the judge unless I'm presiding over a dispute of dogs.
No, he's quite right in saying we shouldn't judge. There I agree with him. But you cannot call an elephant a lion. I mean, that would be unfair. You cannot call a leopard a sheep.
Innocent, when you say but, you are saying I don't agree. Let's finish the first one. Should you be a judge in the affairs of dogs?
I should be able to identify, to say this is a lion, this is a leopard,
should
this
you
is
judged or occupied with judgment?
No, I am not interested in judgment. But
okay, Kate, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, go.
You are giving me a chance, or
okay?
You take it. Let me finish. Yeah, you know what, Innocent. This platform, I think, where we are coming from, or from what I learned, we are trying to say, when you see a tree, you haven't seen a forest. And when you see old people who don't think properly, it's not all old people who don't think properly. There is a proverb which says, we should, when you say that you are putting a boundary that we don't go to old people, but for us to have, for you to get more wisdom, you should be close to more of the old people. We have experienced much in life. So now when you put a boundary, how would they impart their wisdom to you or to us?
Maybe you took me out of context. I didn't mean to say old people are not beneficial, are not going to benefit us anything. I didn't mean it that way. I simply meant in the confines of journalism, that if we are to have impactful journalism, then we as the old people, we should impart it on the young people.
If you have learned something, just stop there and let's move on, than to argue again on the same point you have conceded to. So it's wrong.
I got his point. I think he's actually correct in that we don't have to categorize people. So I explained it to him that I didn't mean it literally blocking old people.
You don't even have to explain, because he heard you correctly. That's why you are trying to wiggle out. How many of us trying to wiggle out from things that we have said?
But I thank him for his clarity, because it actually makes the point clear. I agree with him. We don't have to categorize people. Everyone can learn.
If you don't categorize, others will follow you, will emulate you. But if you are the champion of labeling people, then you can't blame presidents for labeling people enemies. Okay. You wanted to say something?
For me, it speaks to a wider problem that we have. Since we're this part of this is we're talking about identity. It speaks to a wider issue that we have, and how easy it is for expediency or other reasons. We simply throw things like Madalas, the old guy, the youth. I mean, the term youth is being abused in Zimbabwe to a large extent. I mean, I've seen some folks who have been described as youths, dubious at best as part of that description. So
but
there does need to be
kids. You know how many of them are Christians?
How many are Christians?
Who talk about the youth? You know, Jesus, was he a youth, or he was G40?
This is the issue now. You need to think about. I suppose people don't look at it in the same way. Being in the UK, you're exposed to different cultures and how they look at what is youthful and what is not youthful. in some cultures, some of the guys that we work with, they're 35, they're staying at home, and they're classed as a child. And yet in other cultures, they're 18, they're classed as an adult, they're expected to have their own house, to stand on their own 2 feet. Very, very different depending on where you're coming.
There are many young people who are foolish. There are many young people who are smart. And what Laxon was just saying is that, let me see the tree, not trees.
Indeed. I think that's what I'm saying.
Let me talk to Keith, not to black people who have some funny hair.
I get that a lot.
And then call you. Okay. Finally, before we close, there's somebody who sent a comment here. I think it was the fellow in Mozambique. Hi guys. There's some comment that was made that can you please also interrogate the difference between a journalist and an investigative journalist? What are the parameters of journalism in general and investigative journalism in particular? So always, if you are interested in being part of this community or a class of 2020, the COVID-20, that is interested in learning about what is a journalist and what would make one rise above to become an investigative journalist. And what kind of mask is that? Because we all wear masks. Someone wears the mask of journalism to pretend to be one. And some approach the world with no mask at all. So how many of us hide behind certificates? And when reason fails, we become argumentative because we actually don't have anything to say other than this is what I qualified and you are not qualified. Why are investigating journalists targeted by governments? I don't think that anyone wakes up in the morning to target anyone, because someone may say I'm investigative and another may say you are intrusive. To me, I am doing something the best way I know, but in an arrogant, obnoxious manner that I know already the answer. So I just want you to confirm what I know. And that's not journalism. If you know something, I think it's high time you acquired an external mic for your computer for quality audio. And Miss Yaka is saying, that's an instruction to a dog to wear a mask. Somebody's got I think there's somebody with a double. Hello? Yeah. So, Miss Tiaka, it's a good suggestion. I take it. But that's why we're saying, let's build a community so that we can have microphones. We can pay 500 Rand each per year so that we have microphones for those who broadcast. I'm just here as a provocateur, not as a journalist. And I am not doing it to be heard. No, I'm just doing it to show up. And when you show up, if you have seen me, that's enough that I'm as angry as Innocent is, as Laxon is, that what is taking place in our WhatsApp groups can be more structured, more orderly, so that our thinking is shaped and defined by what we do. We'll lessen the arguments and lessen the attacks that are unnecessary. Then we can live up to the promise of what happened today. That Innocent was just talking as he has been talking before, that all dogs must be left out of the dining room. They must not eat. He must invite young dogs so that the young dogs become the voice of what he wants to hear. So that's Innocent. But as a result of this show, I guess Innocent can sum up what he has learned so that we put it in the newsletter. And just what did you learn from this show? And then we can close. Let me tape that and get a transcript of that so that you don't have to repeat it, so that we are just trying to get the voices. It's your turn. It's your turn, Innocent. Innocent, we can't hear you. You are on mute. All right, go ahead.
Okay, I think in that that brother there, what he did say actually helped me, because I picked what he was trying to emphasize on, and I think it was very edifying. So you see that you can have your own idea, you can have your own perception on something, but when you have that attitude to listen, you will be bettered. Like what my sister, who has more color than me, there.
She said that her name is Natasha Dikoka. From now onwards, don't say my sister as a way of hiding behind ignorance.
Okay, my sister Natasha there, she did say that if some people are not going to change you, then you are around the wrong people. So you know that brother there, to some,
his name is Laxon.
He's trying to.
His name is Laxon, not brother. No, it's called Laxon.
Brother Laxon there. Brother Laxon, yeah. He actually listened. He is able to listen to me, and I expressed myself in a way that I thought was right. But because I listened to him too, so I'm changed. You know, I'm better. I'm improved actually. So I think this is what benefits us when we interact and we listen to each other, and we're not polemic about our ideas. We will improve our society, because henceforth you would find that my expressions are part of Natasha, are part of Laxon.
That's right. And Laxon, your final words, just hold on. Just a second. Okay, you can go ahead. It's Laxon's turn.
He's on mute.
Huh? Laxon?
Say, you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I got something from him which is very nice, that you see, people come, or we appear in the society with our own understanding, and we certify what we know as the truth and nothing more, which if someone examines it, sees it differently. So this is now where we have a problem of not meeting, and with this such a platform, it makes us to meet. I show my side, which I had certified, but someone interrogates it, finds it to be not right. So I'm saying it's important that we share more to educate our people, or to educate our society, to take ideas, buying ideas. That is my. When I speak to Natasha, I buy an idea. I speak to Mr. Mawere, I buy an idea. I become better.
Thank you. And Keith? Keith?
Yeah, I think, okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right, for me, conclusion-wise, it's been quite a life-affirming experience in many ways. The one thing I'm glad about the show is that it's not an echo chamber, because sometimes on social media we get stuck in these echo chambers where we literally coalesce around people who think exactly like we do, who have exactly the same life view. What I just witnessed today is a fair exchange of view, what is actually called a proper discourse. And as we can see, we're still together. No one has left. No one has used expletives, but we've reached a point of learning for both sides. And me as someone on the side, I've also learned from what Laxum kind of fed back, that there are some instances where we need to be very careful about the lexicon that's crept in terms of the language we use to describe people or groups or whatever. We talked about journalists and identity. Like I said, I'm a registered mental health nurse, and identity is something we deal with a lot. As people develop illnesses, their identity completely changes. So I understand its fluidity. I hope we can conclude from the show that you are indeed allowed to be a journalist, a golfer, a husband, a wife, a citizen, without any of those roles being said, oh, whoa, how can you be a journalist and a polygamist? Or how can you be a journalist and a Muslim? Without any of that, that we accept the plurality that is the human condition. I hope that's certainly what's coming across from my side. I hope people who are listening somewhere else can appreciate that. But also appreciate that River, this is one of those things that flows both ways. By you being a journalist and not really liking a certain party, it'll color your journalism, and we have to accept that. It may be, if we're into labeling people, we can say, I'm a journalist, but I'm also an anti-abortion person. Be clear in your how you describe yourself, and that way, when people hear what you have to say, they know the prism by which you view the world. There may be the way to go, but without necessarily meaning we'll punish you because your prism is the wrong color or whatever. But I'm glad for the experience from my side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then let's get to Mr. Mutindi. Are you there? He has been missing in action. Godfrey, are you there? Godfrey, are you there? Godfrey is not speaking. All right, let's go to Natasha. Godfrey.
Good morning, comrade.
Yeah, all right. Godfrey is there. Go ahead.
The network is very bad.
All right. So did you pick up anything that you want to share as a parting words?
Yeah, I picked some things. The critical thing which I picked was the debate on who is a journalist or what is a journalist, and the contentious issues on the pedigree of a journalist. Who can we say is a good journalist? And I was glad that it's difficult to come up with an example of a journalist, because we find out that the media, instead of it being a social service to the people, it's commercialized. The news is commercialized, such that each media house spins news in its own direction. It's either the public sector. We find sometimes in some of the countries it's pushed by the state. They want a certain narrative to be sent to the people, and the private sector wants a certain narrative. They want to sell products. They want to send an alternative, such that in between these extremes, sometimes it's very difficult for the people to know which is the truth. What is, or even the simple thing like what has happened. Like right now, I think some of you have seen a news item of a MDC activist who was murdered last night, supposedly murdered in Urungwe. Some have already written that it's Chinamasa who has sent people, it's ZANU-PF which has killed. I don't know. The investigation has not taken place. If the police goes, some people will say the police is part of the system. The court saying no, they will say the court is part of the system. So in this type of contention, in this type of polarization, the truth is the first victim, like what is said usually. It's difficult to know what has happened because political overtones are bigger than the story itself.
Yeah. Thank you. That's indeed the world we live in now, and how to change it becomes the challenge.
Yeah.
Now, Natasha, your final words.
Thanks for having me on the show. You know, these platforms like the C2C and like we found today, it is a place where we
Hello? 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 Okay, Natasha's network is gone. So I guess we come to the end of the show. And thank you very much for being part of it. Hopefully the wider public has learned. And when we learn, we can do things differently. We can think differently. And also we can act differently. It is important that we all learn. And when we learn from those who have had different experiences, not superior experiences, because life allows us to live it in the present tense. Nobody lives before they actually live. So we are here as one. Show up, be the voice. Even if you were to have time to summarize what was discussed here and produce a tweet, produce a text, just to say, I was there. And the video will become the longer version of your own experience. How many of us want to be known, yet we don't want to be known? We don't show up, yet by showing up, it means you become more attractive. If it's your voice that is organized, they will see us as 5 people, not angry at each other. Some people will learn to be less angry at dissenting voices. Even rebellion of ideas will not qualify me to be called less than a human being. But how many of us disagree? And when we disagree, what follows is unhealthy. It's animal-like. When all we could do is to disagree without being disagreeable. So when we talk about the media, it's not the media we are talking about. It's not the journalists we are talking about. It's just the storytelling. That when I tell a story, if I wasn't at the scene of accident, then I was not there. Let me not be the one that comes in. Let me be the one that talks about what I know. And what I don't know, I don't know. And then I leave it there. That what I don't know, I leave it for others. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.